Good evening. The date is Wednesday, January 28, 2026. And while the teletypes in the newsroom might be quiet, the world outside is anything but.
It's a very heavy map tonight. Looking at the dashboard over the last 2 weeks, we're seeing stress fractures in places we'd expect, certainly, but also in corners of the globe that, usually stay quiet.
So our mission for this deep dive is simple. We're going to run down the nations facing acute instability and those teetering on the brink. We'll look at the facts, strip away the panic, and really analyze the patterns.
And before we open those files, we should acknowledge the intelligence engine powering this grief. We're working with reports generated by ProWave AI, and specifically, their Stylo News application.
Yeah, and for those listening, it's important to be clear this isn't just another news aggregator. Stylo News is the consumer version of something called Stylo Intel Aux.
Right, and that's software designed for, serious enterprise operations. We're talking government agencies, military planners.
So the architecture is the same. Listeners are getting access to that level of analysis.
It is a significant distinction. The tool's AI analyzes over 250 sources in more than 20 languages. It cuts the time to insight down to under 60 seconds. It's professional-grade intelligence.
Okay, so let's get to the agenda. What's on the watch list for this briefing?
We have a very full docket. We're looking at immediate stress points: Iran, Venezuela, Bangladesh, Georgia, and Guinea-Bissau.
And then widening the lens.
Then we widen out to future risks: West Africa, Eastern Europe, and some really unprecedented friction in the Western Hemisphere, specifically involving Greenland and the U.S.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the high alert list. And right at the top, just by the numbers and the sheer intensity, is Iran.
It has to be. The situation has been escalating since late December of 2025, but the data from this week feels qualitatively different. It feels like a tipping point.
And what's making it feel that way?
The scale of the casualty count. The Iranian government, in a really rare admission, has officially acknowledged a death toll of 3,117 people.
3,000. That's a staggering number for an official admission. Usually, regimes suppress those numbers, right?
Due to single or double digits. Human rights groups, of course, estimate the actual number is much higher. But the state admitting to over 3,000 tells you two things.
Okay.
One, the unrest is just too widespread to hide anymore. It's everywhere. And two, they might be using that number to signal ruthlessness. A warning.
We have killed this many and we're not stopping.
That's the message. It's a threat.
And the drivers here, it started with economics, as it so often does.
Always the spark. You have inflation nearing 40%. The currency has just collapsed. The government tried to quell the anger with a financial aid program, but the math just doesn't work.
I saw the figures. It was about $7 a month.
$7. When you're facing 40% inflation, $7 doesn't buy loyalty. It barely buys bread for a week. So the demand shifted very quickly from fix the economy to end the clerical rule.
And now the geopolitical layer is getting complicated. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is publicly blaming former U.S. President Donald Trump for the casualties.
The rhetoric is definitely ramped up, but it's feeding off actual events. Trump has been very active on social media, pledging support to protesters, warning of intervention. It creates a feedback loop.
So the regime uses the U.S. threats to justify the crackdown.
Exactly, calling protesters foreign agents.
Yeah.
And the U.S. uses the crackdown to justify more threats. It's a cycle of escalation.
There was one detail in the Stylo reports that really stood out about the Supreme Leader's contingency plans.
The flight risk indicator. Yes, there are British media reports suggesting Ayatollah Khamenei has prepared an escape plan to Russia if the security forces defect.
Now, to be clear, that's unverified intelligence.
It is unverified, but instability analysis, whether he actually gets on the plane, is almost beside the point.
How so?
The fact that the rumor exists shapes behavior on the ground. It signals elite anxiety. If your foot soldiers think the general is packing his bags, they stop following orders.
It's a crisis of confidence within the regime itself.
Precise.
Okay, let's shift hemispheres, but stay on this topic of regime rupture. Venezuela.
If Iran is a slow burn, Venezuela was an explosion.
A U.S. military operation involving Delta Force and the CIA. The result: President Nicolas Maduro and his wife captured on drug terrorism charges.
It's a massive projection of power. And the aftermath in Caracas is, well, chaotic. Analysts in the report are comparing it to Baghdad in 2003.
That is a heavy comparison. That implies a total collapse of the state, a power vacuum. Is it that bad?
It's trending that way. You have this sudden decapitation of the leadership, but we aren't seeing a clean transition. Instead, a shadow leader is emerging.
Diosdado Cabello.
Exactly. A longtime power player, he's organizing in the vacuum, which suggests we're not looking at a handover to the opposition, but an internal power struggle.
A gang war for the throne.
That's a good way to put it. It's not liberation yet.
And the geopolitics here are messy. The U.S. is citing the Monroe Doctrine, resource security, Russia and China are crying foul.
It's a classic superpower standoff. And you really need to watch the energy markets here. There's talk of a potential U.S. maritime oil blockade.
Right.
If you take Venezuelan oil offline, that ripples out globally.
So you have two major energy producers, Iran and Venezuela, both in chaos at the same time. That's a volatile mix. Okay, let's move to the next tier. Governance and the balance. Bangladesh, Georgia, Guinea-Bissau.
Let's start with Bangladesh. Parliamentary elections are coming up on February 12th.
But the tension isn't just at the ballot box, is it? It's on the campuses.
Right. We're seeing student protests, the Sheikh Juju movement. They're demanding immediate campus elections.
Help the listener understand that. Why does a campus election matter for national stability?
Well, in Bangladesh, the universities are the engine room of political mobilization. The students are afraid that the national parties will manipulate or silence the student voice, which was so critical in the 2024 overthrow.
So it's a kind of canary in the coal mine situation.
Exactly. It's a leading indicator of trust in the whole process. If the students turn against it, the process itself could fail.
Now to Georgia. Still seeing fallout from that October 2025 coup attempt.
Georgia is fascinating. It's a literal tug of war. You have the imprisoned former president, Mikhail Saakashvili, openly threatening to overthrow the government if he's freed.
That's quite a statement from a prison cell.
It is. But the diplomatic angle is what's really worrying. The Georgian government is demanding apologies from the European Union, accusing them of implicitly supporting that coup attempt.
Which complicates their path to joining the EU, to say the least.
It fractures the relationship. And on the streets, you have ongoing protests about female political prisoners. It's a very tense, polarized environment.
And quickly, Guinea-Bissau. A military junta there.
A classic sign of brittle authority. They've banned all unauthorized press conferences.
That usually means they're afraid of the questions.
Or the answers. When a government silences the press, they're usually terrified of counter-mobilization. It's a defensive crouch.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've covered the immediate fires. Now for the regional watch lists. The Stylo analysis flagged the Western Hemisphere, but not just the usual suspects. We're talking about Greenland.
This is honestly one of the most surprising flashpoints of 2026. If you had Greenland crisis on your bingo card, well, you win.
Thousands protesting a nuke against Donald Trump's annexation proposals.
It feels like a headline from another century, but the consequences are very modern. It's triggered a trade war. The U.S. is threatening tariffs on European nations that oppose it.
So an ice-covered island with a tiny population is suddenly a wedge driving apart the transatlantic alliance.
It's about resources. Rare earth minerals, shipping lanes in the Arctic. But for the people in Nuuk, it's about identity. Their banners say, "We are not for sale."
Meanwhile, further south in Brazil, President Lula vetoed the amnesty bill for the January 8th coup participants.
And the reaction to that tells a story. The opposition protest, led by Nicolas Ferreira, had a very low turnout. It fizzled.
You contrast that with the Marcha Trans Brazil march.
Exactly. A vibrant social movement on one side, a fragmented opposition on the other. It suggests the appetite for another coup attempt might be lower than some fear.
And what about the U.S. looking at Mexico?
This is a sticky one. There are allegations surfacing in a new book that Mexican consulates are running a kind of shadow campaign to influence U.S. elections.
That is a heavy accusation.
It is.
Yeah.
And whether it's true or not, the accusation itself poisons the relationship right when cooperation on the border is so critical.
And finally, in this hemisphere, Cuba.
The reports are that the U.S. administration, inspired by the Venezuela operation, is actively seeking regime change in Cuba by the end of the year. There's even talk of a maritime oil blockade there, too.
So Venezuela, Greenland, Cuba. The U.S. is adopting a very aggressive interventionist posture.
That is the common denominator. It's a decisive pivot away from soft power.
Let's cross over to West Africa. It's not all gloom, is it?
No, and it's important to highlight the good news to keep perspective. Look at Guinea. Mali Doumbouya won the presidency with 86.7% of the vote.
And the African Union restored their membership.
That's a massive win. It shows a pathway from military rule back to constitutional order. But right next door, in Benin, you have the exact opposite.
The opposition lost all their parliamentary seats.
Every single one. Not because they were unpopular, but because of a restrictive electoral code. So you have democratization and autocracy happening side by side.
And we saw Togo and Burkina Faso cooperating.
Yes, the extradition of former leader Demiba. It shows regional security cooperation is happening, which is always better than the alternative.
All right, let's hit Eastern Europe and Asia before we synthesize Albania.
Violent protests in Tirana, Molotov cocktails, tear gas. The opposition is demanding the prime minister's resignation. It's very volatile.
In Poland?
An internal coup within a political party, Polska 2050.
Ah.
A leadership crisis that threatens to destabilize the coalition government.
Less violence, more political maneuvering.
Exactly, but still destabilizing.
And finally, Myanmar.
The military junta is holding what they call legislative elections, but it's widely seen as a sham. You have armed resistance by pro-democracy activists. The election is really just a facade over a civil war.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We've looked at all the dots. What's the pattern here?
Looking at the Stylo analysis, two clear patterns emerge. The first is a global trend of legitimacy crises.
Break that down for us.
Whether it's the theocracy in Iran, the sovereignty issue in Venezuela, or electoral trust in Bangladesh, citizens are questioning the fundamental right of their leaders to rule.
It's not just about policy disagreements.
No, it's about the right to exist. And the leaders are responding with brute force because they've lost the consent of the governed.
And the second pattern?
The U.S. factor. We are seeing a very active, very interventionist U.S. foreign policy under the Trump administration. It's acting as an accelerant. It's accelerating stress in Iran. It toppled the leadership in Venezuela, and it's targeting Cuba.
A decisive move to hard power.
Without a doubt. And that forces every other country to recalibrate.
What about sentiment? What is the digital noise telling us?
It's interesting. In Iran, you have massive online support from the diaspora for regime change.
Yeah.
But internally, silence because of the internet blackouts.
So the silence isn't compliance, it's suppression.
Precisely. In Greenland, the sentiment is intense local pride. That not-for-sale narrative is dominating everything.
And Israel.
A real mix. Arab parties uniting for elections, that's positive. But then protests in Haifa are facing police restrictions, so rising internal friction there too.
So for the listener trying to make sense of all this, what are the two things they should be watching?
First, energy markets. With Venezuela and Iran in crisis, the supply chain is incredibly vulnerable. If prices spike, that instability exports itself to every economy.
And the second?
Transatlantic relations. Keep an eye on the Greenland dispute. It sounds obscure, but if the U.S. puts tariffs on Europe over an Arctic island, it could fracture the NATO alliance.
That's a sobering thought. The alliances we take for granted are being stress-tested in real time.
They are, and that is why we watch the map.
Well, that is the world as it is today. And we were able to bring you this deep dive to connect all these dots thanks to Stylo News.
We really did just scratch the surface of what the tool can do. We looked at the global view, but Stylo News lets individuals, you, listening, run your own pattern of life analysis.
It's really the democratization of intelligence. You can customize your own feeds from traditional news from X and get these AI-powered insights on demand. You can download the app at www.stylonews.com.
If you want to know what's happening before it hits the evening news, that is where you go.
Absolutely. We want to thank you for navigating this heavy news cycle with us. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot, but understanding it is the first step to not being overwhelmed by it.
We would love to hear from you. If there's a topic you want us to dive into next time, let us know. And definitely give Stylo News a follow on your social media.
Until next time, stay curious.
And that's the way it is. Good night.